Alright, the next series of tutorials are going to be about styles and page master pages. Uh, Essentially, I'm going to give you the tools that will make your life so much easier. It does take a little bit of front-end work. So if you're not willing to put in that time, you won't get that time back. So don't be stupid. Use these tools. Absolutely use them because they're going to make your life so much easier in the future as you make changes, wholesale changes to your portfolio, because we're all designers and we're going to immediately change our mind and find a better way, uh, from one day to the next. So if you don't want to have the headache of kind of reformatting everything, you want to listen very carefully to what I'm going to be telling you. Alright, so let's click on Pages, and what I want you to do is go into the master pages. You see this line right here? That's dividing, master page world from your pages in general. So let's click on one of those, and you'll see that we have kind of some set parameters already in place. We have this kind of border. So let's talk about that. So let's go change that. We're going to change our margins and columns. So in margins and columns, the default might have been this. So let's just play around and see what's what. So if you're doing a portfolio that's going to be bound, you want to be really careful with your margins right here in the center between the two pages. And what this is called is a double page spread. So there's a page on each side. It's a double page. And in between we have the spine. So we want to make that a bit larger than the rest. So if we want to make wholesale changes, and get those kind of this margin on the outside kind of change everywhere, we can do that. So maybe they're all 3/4 of an inch. Here I'll just, and then, but if you want then this inside right here to be a little bit wider, then you have to turn this guy off and change them, that one individually. So I'm going to go with, keep on hitting that. I'm going to go with inside being 0.75 and the outside being 0.5. Alright, so that made that change. The other thing I'm going to click on is this Enable Layout Adjustment. And we'll go into that here shortly, why we click that one. The other thing you can adjust is you can create, column structure, and you can change the gutters between. So you saw this shrink, the gutters between columns. I wouldn't go below 1/8 of an inch, but maybe you could go smaller, but I think you'd have a hard time reading the text. This is what I would call kind of creating kind of an invisible grid. So this are your vertical grids that already set up. I mean, I think whether you do 2 columns or 3 is really up to you. I'm going to go with the 3, I think, and see how that turns out. Alright, so I'm going to say OK. So we can now see how the double page spreads lining up. Okay, the other thing that you do with master pages, because essentially what you're doing with master pages is that you're setting up everything that you want to show on anything that's any pages that have been applied. This master page will show up. So let's just do a couple of things just so you can see kind of what's what. So let's say we want to have our page numbers kind of all show up down here, and we're going to put a graphic in to establish that. So maybe it's a black box, And I'll put a black box, on this side too, maybe. Alright, so you can see right now that each page has an A in it. And essentially that's telling us that this A master has been applied to all of these. So if we flip to this page, we'll see that it has that black box. And we flip to this one, it has that there too. Okay, the other thing that I might do is that in publishing, it's always good to, if you get something close to the edge of the paper, to go ahead and bleed that off. And usually it's about 1/8 inch. And that makes sure that when they publish it and they cut the page, there always is that full bleed. There's never a situation where you have just a hair of white showing because you didn't do the full bleed. So I might change that on both of these. So that would go for images also. If you place an image, make sure it goes past. If it's supposed to go up to the edge of the paper, just make sure you give it a healthy margin. Okay. So that's the start of that. Now you can also place text if you knew that you're going to always have maybe this is always going to have some text lined up. Maybe your body text is always going to start right here. Maybe you have, and I'm pulling the rulers from the top ruler. If you pull it from here and you get outside of the page, it'll go across the entire thing. So if you want that to go across, get off the page. If you want it just to be on the left or right, just go on top of that page that you want it to show up at. I'm just throwing down some things kind of willy-nilly, but we'll see that all of this has then been applied to our master page, or I mean your pages that have that master applied to it. Okay, so the other things that you can do with master pages is you can put text boxes in. So if you knew that this was you're going to start some significant piece of text right here always, then you can go ahead and place that text on the page. And then so you covered graphics, you covered text. Let's keep it kind of that simple. And then you'll see that when you go to that page, the text is there. It's this kind of dotted line. If you want to actually activate it and start placing text, what you do is you hold down the Shift and Control key and click inside of it. And it still has all the other parameters that you've already set up, still there, still present, but you now can actually type the text that you wanted there. Okay, I'm just going to let that rest. Okay. All right, we'll get into some more master pages as we get into some of the other tools, some of their other settings that master pages has available.